Well, my, would you look at the time. It's near the end of summer. While the real world may be cooling down, things are about to heat up in the wonderful world of Tevat, as Natlan is just around the corner. Like many others, I'm excited to check out every nook and cranny of the new area, but I've got something I need to take care of first. Back in 2022, I made a general thoughts video where I talked about every character in the game up to that point. Last year, I made a follow-up at the end of Sumeru, discussing all the characters from that region, plus any previous people who had changed my thoughts on, and now, here we are again. Same old song and dance, but now with even more water. I'm assuming that if you clicked on this video, you know what to expect in this series. If not, here's a super brief rundown. I'm going to look at every character in the game who wasn't around when I did my last episode, and any older characters I want to talk about, and say whatever thoughts I want. There's no consistent theme when I talk about, it's just whatever I feel like discussing. Also, everything here is 100% my opinion. You'll probably disagree with some of my takes, and feel free to comment my really bad ones, just keep things civil. Cool? Cool. Without further ado, let's get right into general thoughts on every Genshin Impact character, 3rd edition. Hydro Traveler. For a while I thought they had broken the streak. Anemo Traveler sucked, Geo Traveler sucked, Electro Traveler was okay, but then Dendro Traveler. Bam! Great unit. They rock, I still use them all the time. I was pumped to see how Hydro Traveler is gonna turn out. Bad. It's bad. They turned out bad. Hydro Traveler is a really weird kit. Between their Cuphead looking finger gun and the slow ball of water, they feel like they're supposed to be a main / sub DPS thing, but kind of fall flat doing both. Because the gun needs you to stand still like an idiot for a while, and the ball, I mean, it's literally just Anemo Traveler's burst. You can try to hide it all you want, it's the exact same move, except it costs more energy, sticks around for less time, and doesn't absorb elements. But you know what every Traveler has in common? They're all really fun, and Hydro is no exception. While their practicality is debatable, Hyper Bloom teams with Hydro Traveler as the driver are an absolute blast. Crazy to think that the upcoming Pyro Traveler is going to be the second Pyro sword in the game, since the combination is still only held by Bennett. He sets a high bar to meet. While I seriously doubt Traveler will come anywhere close to it, I am positive there'll be a ton of fun to goof around with, just like their predecessors. Barbara. Barbara's a character I didn't pay attention to because I never had any reason to pay attention to her. But then I went to a convention where I met her and Xianyun's voice actress, who is a really nice person and signed a sick poster that I can't show because it has my real name on it, but here's an artistic rendition. Anyways, I got that framed, and because of how cool that thing looks on my wall, I feel legally compelled to build and play Barbara. Progress is slow, as anytime I get something cool on her, a different build project comes around and takes it off her, and she's still only C1. But I've got some fun ideas with Furina once to get to C2. It will happen one day. Maybe not one day soon, but because of that beautiful poster, one day. Noelle. For a while I didn't like Geo. It felt like a clunky and anti-synergistic element that simply wasn't fun to use. Then got C6 Noelle and man did my opinion flip around. When you have the right tools to make a Geo team, it's a ton of fun to use, and I built Noelle as a solid foundation for a great team. Get her to C6, max out artifacts, get a Goru or two, and you're set. Noelle especially is a really fun main DPS for Geo because of her ridiculous survivability. Everyone knows how crazy her healing is, especially since it lets her work with Furina. But Noelle's also the only character whose ascension stat is defense, so with some proper artifacts and weapons, she becomes nigh impossible to kill. Seriously, what can you even do against a girl with 3,000 defense and an unbreakable shield? Getting Noelle to C6 really opened my eyes to Geo. After ignoring the element for far too long due to its strange team requirements, getting to use it properly was like being introduced to Dendro all over again. Albedo. After discovering this crazy 7th element, I wanted to utilize its full potential in other teams. This, along with a couple of other factors, made me lock onto Albedo. He was simple, he was fun, and he was good. What's not to love? This was around the time Fontaine came out, roughly August. Albedo hadn't been rerun in a while, so I figured they'd throw him on a banner in due time. They had to, right? A few updates passed with no sign of him, but by this time December was right there. December's the Albedo month, he always comes back then, right? I mean, they're releasing a Geo main DPS, surely they need to give out a battery for her, right? 3 months later, he came back on Chronicled Wish after a full year and a half of absence. My waiting did pay off, as he's one of my best units now, but man, if you need any proof that a 3rd banner is necessary, there it is. Hey, speaking of, whatever happened to Chronicle Wish? That's supposed to be a recurring thing, there's only been one? What the hell? Eula. I got pity broken by Eula while trying to get Albedo on the Chronicle Wish, and I'm glad I did because there's zero chance I would have actually wished for her on her banner. In my first video, I complained about Eula's gameplay, but now I understand it's just because I didn't know how she actually worked. After getting her and spending some time learning the ropes, she's quickly become one of my favorites. I already love physical builds, and a character who takes the basic idea and adds an interesting twist slash minigame on it with her burst is right up my alley. And that damage output really does speak for itself. Still doesn't make her an enjoyable person though. God, she's so annoying. Mika. People are sleeping on Mika. Everyone's sleeping on Mika. You're sleeping on Mika. Even if you think this guy's the best character in the game, you're probably still sleeping on Mika. This guy is ridiculous. Attack speed is such a rare stat to buff, and Mika's not only the easiest source of it, but also the best source of it, and it's not even close. His healing capabilities are also massively helpful. Lots of health at once, then a nice steady source of it. And if you still aren't convinced, he grants a huge physical damage buff at C6. He's a support character who covers so many niches so well that he can fit into nearly any team, and I am so glad I decided to build him. If you don't use Mika, use him. If you do use Mika, use him more, I guess. He's so good. Yunjin. One day, I woke up and said to myself, you know what? I want to build Yunjin. I don't know why. I had never used her before. I never thought about her. I kind of just decided I wanted a new support character to build, and there she was. Anyways, I'm glad I got that urge to build her, because she is really fun. She kind of just works like a Bennett with Geo and a parry, but that's all she really needs to be. She's a very simple yet massively effective support character who can fit quite well into any team without disrupting anything. And if you haven't built her, I'd recommend checking her out. Plus, at C6, she can buff attack speed, like the real champion of support characters, Mika. Yeah! Baizhu. I've got some weird history with the good doctor. I really liked him back in the Leeway story quest, and he was the only Dendro character we knew of for a long time. So, I figured it again when he was released. I mean, they've already got a model of a voice actor, so once they introduced Dendro, he was bound to be one of the first characters of the element to be added. So 8 months after Sumeru introduced Dendro characters, they finally remembered they already had one and put him on a banner. By this time, they had already released a Dendro healer in the form of Yao Yao, everyone's first pick for Dendro Leeway characters, so I wasn't sure I really needed him. I tried to get him anyways and lost 50-50 to Dehya. Oh well, between Yao Yao and the upcoming Kirara, I probably don't really need him, they cover his roles well. Fast forward another 6 months, Fontaine's out, healing is more valuable than ever, and look who's back on a banner. Dr. Baizhu is run alongside Furina. After realizing that Yao Yao's impressively not fun to use, I figured having a good Dendro healer couldn't hurt, so I decided to try for him again. Alas, I lost 50-50 to Tenari this time. Oh well, while he would be helpful, I still don't really need him. Fast forward another 6 months or so, Furina's put the value of healing higher than ever. I'm looking at my teams and seeing how many of them could be improved with the Dendro healer or shield. I was already planning on getting Furina, so combining the two of them could result in some crazy team comps. And then, out of nowhere, he returned. And this time, I was guaranteed the 50-50, because the last 5-star I got was an off-banner Tighnari. From the last Baizhu banner, everything comes full circle in the end. Sayu. Speaking of circles, I actually managed to get my mitts on Sayu after wishing for her on some banner a while back. I don't remember which one. For a long time, she was my most wanted 4-star. While she was a pretty okay support character and all, I wanted to utilize her funny rolling powers to make some really stupid Sayu DPS team. And if I needed any further signs to do this, I pulled another Wolf's Gravestone right after her, as if the game was telling me to commit to the bit. The team is simple. Get the funny rolling girl, and 3 characters who have bursts that move with you. Activate them all, spin in a circle, kill everything. Now, I'm not going to argue this team is anywhere close to good, because it isn't. But it is exactly what I wanted to get out of Sayu. It's silly, it's stupid, and it's a lot of fun. Kuki. We now get to my new most wanted 4-star. Miss Hyperbloom over here has the potential to fit perfectly into a few teams. I don't have anyone built around her signature reaction yet. She's like an alternate Toma. A bloom trigger with some support capabilities. And I know how much I like that guy. But no matter how much I wish, she just won't show. I may have to wish on a banner for her, like with Sayu, so maybe the stars will just align for her to share with the 5-star I want. Realistically though, I may just have to make some weird Raiden build for the funny Electro reaction, or I could just stick with Virgin. Kirara. I had to wait until this event to get Kirara, and now that I have Baizhu, she is completely and utterly useless. I even have her at C5 now, so I feel compelled to try to make some insanely dumb build for her that probably won't work at all. At least she has a cool hat. Dehya. Dehya. Oh boy. Dehya is a solid character with a solid design, but is notoriously bad in gameplay. She tries to fill several roles, but ends up not being great at any of them. So, naturally, the times I've been trying to find a way to use her. You know me, I love using strange and off-meta characters in fun ways, so I was trying to find out how to get mileage out of Dehya in a way that gave her a really unique role to fill. I had one really out there idea. It was a solid concept, but alas, the tools to make it just weren't in the game. I had her in some Haizu teams as pyro application, but that was just as filler. I knew that one day they'd add something to make my crazy idea become a reality. I just had to be patient. 4.6 introduced a new area, a new character, and 2 new artifact sets. While everyone's freaking out about harmonic whimsy, I had my focus on something else. Living up to its name, Unfinished Reverie was exactly what I needed to put my plan in motion. Burning Dehya. It's the combination of a few different projects I was working on, and sometimes a bit of fine-tuning. C2 is basically required to make it work, and preferably Sacrificial Greatsword as well, but man oh man is it fun. Get a driver, get a healer, you need one, throw in some grouper, and you can actually get some wild damage in. Yeah, it's ineffective. Yeah, it's impractical. Yeah, it's kinda clunky, but it's fun. And it gives Dehya a role to make her stand out for the plethora of Pyro Greatsword DPS characters. It gives me a legitimate goal to work towards when building her, and I think that's pretty cool. Nilou. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but part of me was really hoping they would just never rerun Nilou. But they did. And when they did rerun her, I was really hoping they wouldn't make her the focal point of the event. But, of course, they did. People seriously like this character? Kaveh. My thoughts on Kaveh have drastically changed, yet somehow remained exactly the same. When I wrote my first segment on him, it was right after I got him, and I thought he was fantastic. A really fun main DPS built around using a reaction in a unique way, and with a kit that's actually simple to understand, this guy's great. But as you used him more, the novelty started to wear off. While it was fun to bust out from time to time, his flaws were becoming apparent. He needs a ton of energy, he doesn't do very much damage, and a lot of his teams want Nilou. Gross. Despite his fun kit, maybe he was just bad? While I couldn't admit it, part of me suspected may be true. For the majority of version 4, I was barely using the guy. I was focused on so many characters who were performing better, they just sorta forgot about poor Kaveh. Yeah, he was fun in Bloom teams, and he's an important part of Dehya burning, but he wasn't close to being legitimately useful. But I couldn't stay away for too long. The combination of getting Furina and Baizhu recently has brought Kaveh back into the spotlight. This team is amazing. Double Resonance lets Kaveh get the highest EM he can, and lets Baizhu reach his 50,000 HP threshold to maximize reaction damage. Furina and Xingqiu combined provide more than enough hydro to guarantee a bloom trigger on every hit during Kaveh's burst. Throw in Furina's fanfare points, which are easy to accumulate with Baizhu and Kaveh's healing, and it lets Kaveh's damage soar to heights it shouldn't even be able to reach. When all the pieces of this team fit together, the result is spectacular. So now I feel just as enthusiastic about Kaveh as I did when I first got him. He's a super unique character who offers a new and very effective way to play the game. Despite what I thought about him for a while, he's still one of my favorites, and this team demonstrates that. While it was once a funny team I busted out for a bit of off-meta variety, it is now one that I'm legitimately considering bringing into Spiral Abyss. And it's all built around Kaveh, the brilliant architect and master of Bloom. Eat your heart out, Nilou. Wanderer. I didn't really do a section on Wanderer last time. Instead I used a segment to make a wacky joke. While it was a pretty solid joke, I think my main is to do some nice words. From the moment Wanderer was announced, I knew I was going to love him. Scaramouche was already one of the best characters in the game, and the build up to his release was spectacular. I picked him up on day 1, along with the Diluc, and immediately fell in love. Again, I guess. Wanderer has a funny, unique gameplay loop of grabbing supporting elements and machine gunning to fit as many small and quick attacks into skills duration as possible. There are so many different ways to build Wanderer teams. With every element giving a different boon, and choosing between a shield or further damage buffs, these 2 slots on teams can be filled with a huge variety of different characters that all change how you approach situations. That last slot is always Farazan, no reason to switch her out. You can go full offense with Dehya and Mika, mostly offense with Ben and Mika, further min-max with Mona, turtle mode with Diona and Toma. The possibilities are endless. My go-to is a combination of Furina and the man himself, Mika. It's a hyper offense team that can boost Wander's DPS through the roof. Upwards of 20,000 damage a hit on someone who attacks this fast is absurd. Though I do sometimes switch it out for Layla and Xingqiu if I need a shield. I have rambled for far too long about this guy now, but with good reason. Wanderer is my main, and I really want to get that across. He's such a mechanically interesting character with so many unique ideas, and every one of them combines to make a unit who's always a ton of fun to use. Except we can get hit while flying. Dude, this guy gets stuck in hit stun forever, oh my god. Gaming. Alright, now we can get to the new characters. First up on the chopping block is... Gaming. Yeah, I know that's not how it's pronounced, but... Come on, his name is Gaming. They seriously added a character to this game named... Gaming. I would 110% build him if he wasn't the 4th character of this exact weapon element combo. Even if he is the best of them, I already have 2 of these guys built. I really don't need a 4th. But, at the same time, none of the others are gaming. If I'm ever looking for a wacky new build project, I know exactly who I'm gonna focus on. Gaming. Xianyun. Whatever happened to hangout events? Seriously, they used to be adding 1 or 2 every other update, and now they've kind of just forgotten about them. Do you know how many were added the entirety of version 4? 1. And it was just an excuse to add the D20 gadget. Since hangout events are the main way to learn about 4 stars, that means a lot of them have to rely on temporary events to get any time in the spotlight, if they even get that. I seriously cannot tell you a single thing about Chevreuse's personality, because I haven't gotten the chance to find out. Not to mention, there's still a ton of old 4 stars that could really use a hangout event. Dory, Xianyun, Kali. Hell, back in my first video, I said about you wanted an official hangout event, and we still don't have that. Oh, but heaven forbid we got a 5-star without giving them an hour-long story quest, and they can be the most repetitive, the most forgettable, the most disgusting, the most boring, annoying character in the game, but because they're a 5-star, they need to have a story quest, while the amazing 4-star characters get table scraps. What a sick joke. Chiori. I legitimately entirely forgot Chiori existed until I pulled up the list of characters to write the script. I don't think I've ever seen anybody use or even mention Chiori since release. And I'm not about to change that, just use Albedo. Sethos. When I was first writing the script for this video, I could not think of a single thing to say about Sethos. I didn't have him, I'd never met him, I didn't have any opinions about his design or anything. I couldn't think of a single thing to say. But luckily, at the very end of the summer event, he showed up. I could finally meet him and see what he's like. And now I have... Well, I still don't have anything to say, but at least I have footage now. Lyney. I'm developing a theory about power in Tevat. Visions are a very strong asset, and allow their wielders to channel elemental power. And that's cool and all. But you know what really enhances their power? Hats. Think of some of the best characters right now. Furina, Navia, Clorinde, Wanderer, Lyney. What do they all have in common? Hats. They wanted people to pay more attention to Kirara, but they didn't want to directly buff her stats. So what do? They gave her a hat. Now, I'm sure you're trying to think of some top tier characters who don't have hats. Yeah, characters like Kazuha, Nahida, and Neuvillette are good and all, but shut up. It's still a work in progress, and it's only a bit more evidence to prove it. But I am truly of the belief that hats in Tevat are catalysts used to exert even more elemental power. This is the secret info Tori actually told Nahida in exchange for her gnosis. Lynette. Lynette is a strange character I'm not sure I understand the point of. She seems like she's supposed to be a jack-of-all-trades animo character, sort of taking the roles of all the others, but she doesn't do anything quite as well as the competition. She can move around fast, but not as effectively as Sayu. She can absorb elements into her burst, but not as well as Kazuha. Her burst can buff the party's damage output, but not as much as Sucrose. Jack of all trades, but master of none. She's weird, she's strange, but she's fun. Both in the gameplay and character sense. Because Lynette was actually fortunate enough to get a hangout event, I got to see a lot of her, and she's an odd one, that's for sure. I'm not sure what the deal is with her various modes. Maybe she's a robot, maybe she thinks she is, or maybe she's just freaking weird. Either way, she's a fun character who I quite enjoy. Although there is one thing I don't like about Lynette. There is no way they added a third cat person to this game that still has zero connections to the other ones. They have to stop doing this, man. It's becoming a recurring issue. Freminet. Every time they add a physical DPS character, I'm contractually compelled to build them. I've done it once, I've done it twice, and now I have to do it a third time, even if that order isn't quite right. But there's a good reason for that. They are a blast. Every one of them plays completely differently from each other. Each one of them is a ton of fun to use. Freminet stands out from the competition with a really fluid gameplay loop. Hit someone with your skill, boom, bing, bop, pow, smacking with a penguin. It sounds simple, but with enough buffs up, you can easily get a bunch of things to sync up perfectly around this loop. Like, if you place down a Phantom with Mona and immediately switch to Freminet, it'll land a hit in between Freminet's last charge and ending hit, freezing the target and letting Freminet proc Shatter. Or, when he's in his burst, you can get a good rhythm of skill, 2 hits, skill, buffer hit, repeat. With some dashes in there, lets you fit in 3 powered up skills and 1 more right before the cooldown resets. This is why I don't like running Mika on Freminet teams. As much as I love the guy, more attacks me to interrupt this mechanical rhythm they play Freminet around. Neuvillette. I love Neuvillette. He's a fantastic character with great writing who improves every scene he's in. I 100% would have picked him up if I didn't already have an influx of DPS characters. If I make a second account though, you can be sure I'm nabbing him. And while I could go on about how great of a character he is, I can merge that in with the next section, and instead use this time to talk about a part of the game they rarely engage with. Spiral Abyss. I do Abyss sometimes if I feel like it, but not consistently. Best I've gone is 11-3, which I am quite content with. Abyss demands intense knowledge of the game and pristine team building to succeed. On those higher floors especially, you basically need to have 4 fully built characters with the rotation between them optimized perfectly. Or you could have used Neuvillette. Yeah, I distinctly remember a time when one of the top teams in Abyss was Neuvillette. Not Neuvillette and 3 support characters, just solo Neuvillette. Maybe it's a sign of how insanely powerful he is, or how Abyss can't keep up with the current characters, but to me, it's just really, really funny, and I think about that all the time. Furina. I am so glad the 2 main characters of Fontaine are this good. I think the nation has a very middle-of-the-road cast overall. There aren't many characters I hate, though there are some. But there also aren't too many characters I love. Fortunately, the 2 stars of Fontaine are not only some of my favorites in the region, but in the whole game. Honestly, I shouldn't be surprised by this. Not because of the solid reputation of the Archons, but because of their color schemes. One day when I was updating my character tier list, I took a step back and realized a weird pattern. All of my top 5, Dotori, Furina, Neuvillette, Wanderer, and Dainsleaf, all use a black and blue color scheme. Sure, it's more prominent on some than others, but the pattern's undeniably there. That's not to say like every black and blue character, because I certainly don't. But now that I've noticed the pattern, I've got to pay extra close attention to any upcoming characters who fit the bill, as they could well join their comrades up at the top. Wriothesley. Dude, I am so glad they got Joe Zija in this game. He's a fantastic voice actor and all-around great dude. The problem is, they have Joe Zija in this game, and he does the exact same voice that he does for Claude for Wriothesley. Every time this guy opens his mouth to talk about tea, I instinctively picture Claude's portrait updating along with him talking, which makes it hard to pay attention to much of what he says.
But we've inspected our records. No one even vaguely resembles him.
Still a great character though, love this guy. Charlotte. You remember when I was complaining about 4 stars not getting enough screen time since they decided to stop making hang events for no reason? Well, Charlotte sort of has the opposite problem. Hoyo seems to really like Charlotte, since they put her into pretty much everything for a while. She was the only Fontaine character introduced before the region itself. She's in every act of Fontaine's story. She's been like half the events during version 4, they just can't get enough of her. It's so weird. She's not a bad character or anything, it's just, why her? I get that she's a reporter, she goes around and sees the world and all, but it would have been pretty nice to give one of those spots to some other 4-star who still needs the screen time. Navia. If there is one thing that I absolutely love about Navia, it's her voice lines. I didn't have any strong feelings about her after completing the Archon quest, but then she released and was yelling things like,
"Umbrella warfare, I guess."
And I developed some strong feelings. How they make one character so quotable? Well, I'll tell you. Write some wonderfully cheesy lines, get a V8 to shout them with overflowing passion, and make the character strike an awesome pose while saying them. Seriously, the amount of times these lines run through my head every day is unhealthy, considering I don't even have Navia, but I am seriously tempted to get her so I can have an on-demand, that's the way, Clorinde. I'm starting to get really confused about what time period Genshin is supposed to take place in. I know it's a fantasy world, doesn't have a track one-to-one with real history, but still, it's kinda weird going from Mondstadt, a land of swords, shields, and torches, up to robots, guns, and airships. If Fontaine has this awesome tech, why not share it with the rest of the world? It's not like there's some big conflict they have with the other nations. They seem to get along well with everybody else. It doesn't matter. Maybe it'll be explained in some future quest, because it's kind of difficult to get invested in the world when every nation is at different points in technological progression. Chevreuse. Following closely behind Kuki, Chevrolet here's the other 4-star I really want to get my hands on. Partially because Overloaded is a really fun reaction, and the character built around that seems cool. Partially because she give my Yanfei a solid role in the cast. Partially because I actually want to know what kind of character she is, because she's had 0 screen time since release. But, mostly because she eats French fries. Because she's French. If that's not a valid reason to want a character, I don't know what is. Emilie. I want you all to know that I predicted this character. Way back in late version 3, they introduced a Bloom-based character in the form of Kaveh. This really piqued my interest, since at this point, Bloom on its own was a pretty bad reaction. The idea of a character who's supposed to patch up a bad reaction was a really solid one. Apparently, Hoyo thought so too, because they did it again with Crystallized and then Overloaded. Both these were very welcome additions to the game that greatly succeeded in bringing these reactions into the light, but I knew they weren't gonna stop there. As soon as this became a trend, there was one reaction that I really wanted to see get some love. Burning. Burning has always been a joke reaction that only gets used in really niche teams, and is undoubtedly the worst reaction in the game. Seeing a character designed to make it usable would be amazing. And when Unfinished Reverie came out, I knew that my faith was not misplaced. I called Emilie, and I would 100% use her if she weren't a 5-star. At least I still have Dehya Burning, I guess. Sigewinne. Let's get this over with. I have a tier list of characters I'd like to update as I play through this game. With a roster of this size, it can be helpful to organize all the characters, keep track and rank all the people you like. And don't like. I have a special tier at the bottom of this list for characters who I think are actively harmful to the game, whom Genshin would genuinely be better off without. While Genshin's roster is generally solid, there are 3 standouts who managed to fall to the depths of this tier for one reason or another. Paimon, for being an intrusion to the story who doesn't fit anymore, and having such a grating voice it makes it hard to recommend the game because of how obnoxious she is. Nilou, for being a character with no personality who derails the entire plot to become the most important person in the world in the middle of a story about stopping false gods. And the latest addition, Sigewinne. This one's gonna require some explaining. Throughout its lifespan, Genshin hasn't had the best reputation on the greater internet. First, it was seen as a knockoff of Breath of the Wild. Annoying, but fair enough. It started out taking more than a few elements from it, but has since grown its own identity. Now it's kind of the face of gacha games, and it gets a bad rep from that. I don't think it deserves this because of how its gacha elements are never ever the top priority of the devs, but since it is the most popular game with these mechanics, I guess the reputation is somewhat deserved. And then there was this one really obnoxious phase in the middle where Genshin was seen as the game for pedos. This one was really fucking annoying because it was entirely baseless. Why was it called that? Because you can play as kids? You know what other game lets you play as kids? Mario Kart. You don't see anyone whining about that. Fortunately, this did eventually pass, because the joke got shifted to Minecraft YouTubers. Good thing too. While there are child characters in this game, none of them feel like generic gross little anime girls. They're all really fleshed out, distinct, and enjoyable characters who just feel like they're meant to add some fun to the world, or help contribute to the grand story. Now, I bring this up because I'm really glad the pedo laughing stock has shifted to Minecraft YouTubers, because if it were around when Sigewinne was in the game, I would have no defense. There's no word that better describes Sigewinne than disgusting. Something about the way she's written really just makes me uncomfortable. She's a nurse who looks and acts like a little girl who's obsessed with doing whatever she can to make you feel better, acts all cutesy and bubbly, and just doesn't sit right with me. Plus all the extra giggles, the general tone of all her voice lines, and it's just nasty. I really hate using this word, but she truly does feel like lolly bait, and I despise that. Yeah, sure, these are some lofty claims coming from someone who makes Klee, but it's just the way they're written, man. Klee's a fun-loving arsonist child who happens to be adorable. Sigewinne's an employed being of ambiguous age who acts mostly like a child and is a little too focused on your body. It brings me right back to the reputation this game had in 2021-ish, in all the worst ways. I hate Sigewinne. She represents a part of the game I wanted to forget, and she didn't have to be this way. She's earned a special spot at the bottom of the tier list, and she won't be going anywhere anytime soon. Arlecchino. Arlecchino is awesome. Arlecchino is a lot of fun. Arlecchino is a great character, and Arlecchino is a unit who I would totally get if she weren't so repetitive. The archetype of Pyro main DPSs is incredibly oversaturated. I already have 3 of them built, with at least 4 more I could use. The Knave would have to do something incredibly unique to convince me to get her, and she just doesn't offer anything aside from really high damage, which I can already easily achieve with Klee. Like Neuvillette, the Knave is a character I'll definitely pick up if I make another account, but in my current account, where I already have way too many Pyro DPS characters, she'll mark the quick end of my Harbinger collection. Skirk. Since I talked about Paimon and Dainsleif back in the first edition of this, it only makes sense to look at the next big NPC of this importance. Considering how much of a fan I am of Dainsleif, it'd only make sense for me to be a fan of Skirk as well. They're both mysterious characters with connections to Conria and the Abyss. They both show up rarely in Archon quests to reveal some important lore. By all accounts, I should love her, but I don't. I really don't. While Skirk and Dane are similar on the surface, looking a little deeper shows just how much better Dainsleif is written. Just look at how they reveal lore. Dane is mysterious and has a lot of secrets, but he always delivers relevant information to help the traveler with whatever the two of them are working towards. He's not telling you everything, but it never feels like he's intentionally hiding anything immediately important either. Skirk, on the other hand, shows up once, refuses to answer anything, talks in open-ended questions and nicknames nobody understands, and then leaves without explaining a damn thing. Yeah, I know she doesn't trust the traveler as much as Dane, but the way she exposits makes it feel like she's barely revealing anything at all, and makes all her scenes, currently one, feel pointless, even though they aren't. I want to like Skirk, and I'm really hoping she'll come back at the end of Natlan to answer some questions she failed to this time. She had a pretty bad introduction scene, but she has the potential to grow to a much greater character. I just hope she can live up to that. Dainsleif. You know, I'm already talking about the Bowkeeper, so I may as well just give him another section. For 2 years now, I've had ideas for what I wanted Dainsleif to talk about in his annual quest. And for 2 years now, he's shown up to do something entirely different, and it's still been one of my favorite quests in the game. Even after 2 of the nations with the best written characters, Dainsleif remains my absolute favorite, and it's still not close. Whenever he gets the rare chance to be in a story, he shines. More than anybody else in Teyvat, Dainsleif feels like a fully fleshed out, 3-dimensional person. He has all sorts of goals, motivations, and happenings to take care of, and he grows a lot, both on and off screen, in and between his quests. Notably, he's one of the only characters who feels like he does things without the Traveler around. Most people in this game have some big life goal, and they only start doing it once the Traveler gets there and starts their story quest. It's a fine formula, but makes it feel like a few of them don't really have a life without them. Dainsleif, however, only shows his face once a year, and it's always when he's in the middle of something. With him, it actually feels like you're crossing paths by pure coincidence, and just so happen to be in a good situation to combine forces once again. Interestingly, the last 2 Traveler quests have barely featured the guy. He shows up a bit at the beginning and the end, but majority of the quest takes place without him. Even then, he feels like a big part of those quests, and still manages to have real character development. Dainsleif is my favorite character in the game, and will likely remain that way. Like I said way back when, he represents the future of Genshin in a way that I like. The grand tale of a continent ravaged by all sorts of internal wars and conflicts, watched over by a god that only cares about false order. An epic for the ages, and Dainsleif is the character at the front of it all. This has been a wild year for this game. Mechanics are getting more advanced, the story is getting more layered, the characters getting more diverse, and the scope getting much larger. I have massively enjoyed everything version 4 offered. I'm planning on going much more in depth with all the little things in a video that I'll make far in the future. Before I simple thoughts, I think version 3 was more important and enjoyable overall, but 4 was a great successor. The new members of the cast reflect this well. While there are some absolutely fantastic additions, I think it's a pretty average batch overall. There are a lot of characters who would just call pretty cool and then move on with, and in a roster this good, that puts them around the middle of the road. On the bright side, there are only 2 characters in this version who I didn't like, which is less than any other one, so that's progress. While on the subject, I feel like a lot of this video is talking about negatives in this game. I went on more than a few rants about things that devs did that I don't like, and it's not because I don't like the game, just the opposite. I want Genshin to be the best game it can be. I know it can fix this, improve these, and do better than this. Genshin hasn't had the best reputation over the years, and I want nothing more than for this amazing game I love so dearly to get the respect it rightfully deserves. So it pains me to see the devs screw up like this. I criticize because I care. I want to see the game improve. And maybe it will. This is an annual thing now, so after Natlan's all wrapped up, you'll find me right back here, ready to go again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.